Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and in today's video I'm going to talk about how to redirect users to the Power Apps app, especially if you're using SharePoint List, and instead of using the SharePoint List form or the quick edit functionality, how do you go ahead and redirect them to the Power Apps app? Now, before we jump into all the details, I know some of you are thinking is that, Daniel, why do I even want to do this? And there's actually a very simple and a very valid reason for that, something you should be aware of if you are using the SharePoint List as a connector. And that is that when it comes to the security of the Power Apps, granted, I got to give you access to the app, but the main security is connected to the backend connector, which is SharePoint List. So two things you have to do is you've got to go ahead and give people access to that SharePoint List over there, and then the app has to have that connection. So if you use the app, you've got to have that read and write capability all the way down to that SharePoint List. So not just the app maker, but the app user as well. So before I jump into the details of how we're going to do that and how we're going to find a good workaround for that and some security tips and tricks I can show you over there, I want to at least show you how this app solution works over here, and it also factors in the tricks that I've shown you. So here is the app, right? Here's the Power Apps app that everybody will be using. And it will go ahead and first save the data to the first list. That's correct. There's actually going to be two lists, but I'll talk more about that later on. So it first goes ahead and saves it to the first list. Then what happens is, using Power Automate's flow, we do a security check. The security check is to see, did this data come in through Power Apps, or did it come in through that SharePoint customized form or through the quick edit option over there? If it is a legitimate Power Apps entry, then it'll go ahead and save that data to the secondary list over there. It goes ahead and deletes the data from the primary list. So I think you're already understanding that the primary list, or the first list over there, is just a temporary location to house the data. That's basically the functionality over there. The main data is stored in the secondary SharePoint list over there. And then after it is stored over there, it goes ahead and the process stops over there. The second functionality is that if the user somehow stored the data using directly that SharePoint List number one's functionality, be it quick edit or customized form, we are able to find that out. Is, hey, this was not the entry didn't come in through the Power Apps form; it came in directly through the SharePoint List number one, and then from there on, it immediately goes ahead and deletes that item. It sends an email notification to the user saying, hey, you got to go and use that apps over there. And that's basically how the process works. Now I'm going to go ahead and share that tip and tricks that I have over here. So all in all, this is what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to show you how to use the SharePoint connector in the app. Now, I don't mean by going ahead and setting up the SharePoint connection and putting in the app. That's not what I mean. I'm going to show you that in reality, there's a SharePoint connector, and there's actually two connections coming in, which are the two SharePoint lists. That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm also going to talk about how those permissions are set up for the SharePoint list, because you got to think about that. I need to show the data that's coming from the SharePoint list, but only one of them I need to be able to save the data over there. So how do I do that? I'm going to walk you through that process over there. Second thing is how I'm going to plan the viewing and the saving of data, and that's again comes up to some of the SharePoint list views that I'm going to show, but how I'm going to save that data. So 2 and 3 are very close to each other. How I'm going to configure the SharePoint list, and that's basically configuring it with the views over there, and also configure the permissions of the SharePoint list, and then finally how the flow works. So what I'm going to do now is, before we jump in and see how the logic works behind that, is I'm just going to go to do two demos. First demo will be done by me. I'm the app builder, so how I am able to go ahead and run the app and how the flow goes ahead and saves the data. Second demo I'll show is through the everyday user, and how the everyday user is able to go ahead and save the data using the app, and then how he or she is able to try to do the workaround by finding that SharePoint list and going ahead and making an attempt to use the quick edit functionality, and we'll see what happens over there. All right, so as always, enough with the talking, let's jump into the demo. Okay, let me get out of this app over here, this PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll jump in first with that first demo which I talked about, which is going to be me. I'm the app maker, and you can actually see over here that that's me. All right, so here is the app. So I'll go ahead and directly open it up. I'm going to close this. I'll just open up the app, and I'll go ahead and make one entry in because I just want to show you that it works. Now what happens is the app directly goes and opens up this screen over here, but if you go to the home screen, it basically says that you currently have no hotel reservations. And now you guessed it, this is my infamous example that I use all the time, is just making a hotel reservation entry over there. So that's the same example I'm doing. It went and checked that right now there is no entry made at all, which means there's no entries in the SharePoint list as well, which means I got to click on that plus icon and put in an entry. So it's a very simple entry, so I just put that in because the app's the easy part. There's no emphasis on the app over here and how the app works. I'll just change something so we can know the difference. Zip code 54321. Alright, that's fine. I'll just change the departure date to that. Attending a conference. Save. Yes. So right now what's happened is it is going to go ahead and save the data. So as I have the maker, I know that the data is actually coming to this SharePoint list. Now this SharePoint list is going to be a temporary location, all right? Now there's a Power Automate flow running in the back end. Its flow is kicked off already. So in a few seconds, what you're going to notice is that the data is going to disappear from this primary location. And since me as Daniel Christian used the app to do it, which is the correct way, it will validate that. The flow goes ahead and validates it, and then it will take the data from here any second and it moves it over to the secondary list. This is the secure SharePoint list for that app. So I'll just give it another second. I'll just refresh it over here. I see the data already came through over here, which means if I refresh it, it's gone over here. All right. So this is the verification piece, is that I'm securing the place. The app saves the data over here, but that list everybody has access to. So from a security standpoint, I'm moving it from here to the secondary secured list. But we'll talk more about that. I'm going to jump now over to logging in as another user. This user is Gabriel. Once the app was shared with Gabriel, Gabriel got this email notification, or he can log into Power Apps and he'll see that the app is available for him over there. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to click on that and I'll say open up the app. The same type of pop-up screen opens up for Gabriel because he's not actually done an entry before. So he goes straight to the hotel reservation. But now, even though which is Daniel, made an entry, Gabriel still sees this over there because I'm going ahead and filtering the data to see that right now there is no entries done by Gabriel over here. Right? So that's just a little tip that I use a filter functionality based on the login user. And if there's no entries by the login user in the SharePoint list, then it goes ahead and just shows me that. So that was the easy part. I'm going to come over here, and now Gabriel's doing an entry. So Gabriel Christian 54321 South Boulevard, leave the state and all that as is. We'll do the arrival date on the 18th. Family vacation. Save that. Are you sure? Temporarily you see this, but when it refreshes, that goes away. So that's not this is not the place to worry about. And then I'll go ahead and jump out, and I'll go back straight as me as the maker, and I refresh this place. Gabriel's data is temporarily available over here. See, it shows up over here, and then any second it's going to disappear from here, and it's going to go into the SP secure list over here, right? The secondary list. So when I refresh it, you will see any second the flow is running. And now we will have two entries over here. All right. So it says the second entry sees Gabriel's new. When I come in, it disappears from here. Now let's go through the third scenario where Gabriel is very SharePoint savvy. Now Gabriel saw that, hey, that app name was something called as hotel reservation. Let me jump in over here. Gabriel's pretty savvy. He knows that, hey, this is a pretty the app name is called as hotel reservation. So let me just jump into the SharePoint list. He's got a few ideas of what the SharePoint list could be, and key thing is through the SharePoint search he could actually come in and find out, go through the few sites that he already has access to, and just start typing in hotel. He's something to do with hotel, and then he can find out that list. So that's basically how he's able to find out, because he's got an access to the list. He will be able to know, hey, there is something over here called hotel reservations. So as any other savvy SharePoint user, he comes into the content section and says, oh, I do see a hotel reservation list over there. I'm going to click on that, and lo and behold, that is the list where that SharePoint data is being stored. So again, It's nothing that he did any bad things. He just has access to this because that's how Power Apps works. But over here, there's a couple of things we can do from a Power Apps Maker standpoint to make this very secure. And that's the whole concept of this video, is how can I make this secure? So again, back into the Gabriel's role over here, right? So Gabriel comes in over here, and now he's going to say, well, let me just try submitting it as a form. So I click in New, and bam, that shows up over here. So that's the first security thing that you as an app maker can do, is you can enforce a form to show up over here saying that this form is now available as a web app. Click here to access this. So you've already made that first attempt, right, of security, is that now even when the end user tries to click on the new item to actually get the customized form, the default form doesn't show up. And if there is a customized form, it's just that simple form. It says that alert, this is not available. You got to go use the app and put the link over there. So you've taken care of that first possibility. All right, but let's take it a step further. That Gabriel is very savvy. All right, so what he's going to do is, all right, I couldn't do it as a new item. I'm going to try the quick edit. So I do a quick edit over here. I click on the quick edit, shows up. So let's try Gabriel Christian, to Main Street. Put in some information, just try to kind of spice things up a little bit. 202020. Arrival date, I'm going to change that to 05/01/2020. I'm just typing in. I could have gone ahead and clicked on this as well. Just completely fine. Either way, it works. And after I do this, I could select a pet. And then if I just hit enter, it comes into the next row here, or I can just click on exit, and Gabriel has successfully saved data in that list. My gosh, what do we do to solve that? Because he has found a way of not using the app, but directly putting the entry over there. But has he really been that smart? Or were we, the app makers, smarter than him? And it's actually the latter one, all right? So I'm going to actually wait for a second over here. I'm going to keep refreshing because you'll see what's happening. Any second now, it's going to disappear from there. And I know you're going to say, but Daniel, that's normal. It disappears from here and it goes and saves it in that secondary location. We'll test that, all right? Just wait for this thing to disappear. It disappeared. You notice that an email pop-up came over there. Well, let's hold on to that. Let's jump back in as a maker. Was the hotel reservation? Obviously, there's nothing in the hotel reservations over here. But let's go to that secure list. Secure list, we knew that there were already two, right? I'm refreshing, and the third one hasn't shown up. So now let's go take a look at that email which Gabriel got. All right, so we go to the email, and there is actually a new conversation that's come up over here, and it's telling us that, hi Gabriel Christian, the new item you added to that list has been deleted. You need to use the new online feature to submit the request. So the flow was smart enough to go ahead and catch that this entry was actually not put the correct way. You've got to use the apps form, and it sends a notification too, is that, hey, you did it the wrong way, so I've gone and deleted that entry. You got to go and use the form. So now we've taken care of it from the second point as well. We went ahead and in the first way, we took care of this way. We put a precaution and told them, go use the form. But even if the end user uses the quick edit way, we've got a really smart flow running in the back end, which catches that and goes ahead and deletes that and sends a notification over here. So you understood the process of how this is working, because we've really secured the data from that SharePoint list time form. The end users actually don't even see what happens over here. They've come to the primary list, they don't see it. It actually goes ahead and saves in the backend. So now I'm going to pop open the hood of this app. Let's figure out what's going on, all right? Because there's an app as well as a flow. All right, so I'm going to come back in as the maker. And here was the app. In fact, if I refresh it, since there's data over here, it should show up some other data as well. But again, that's not the whole point of this app, right? So I'm going to come over here. Oh, and by the way, another tidbit I'll show you is that if you notice when Gabriel walked in, he sees the app over here. Not that way, this way. He sees it. He doesn't see the lock functionality, but the maker, which is me, I see the lock functionality because I'm doing the visible and invisible, so that the maker can actually come in and see all the entries, the one which was put by Gabriel and put by me over there. Very simple way. You go ahead and do the visible and invisible just by filtering it based on who's logged in. Whoever is logged in, do a validation check with your own login email's name, and that's how it works. Okay, just another tidbit I threw out over there. All right, so I came in, and a couple of things are going on first over here. All right, so when the entry is made, all the form is filled out and everything. The app is actually very simple. Come in over here, gallery is there. If you click on it, it does a view. Again, easy, not the big deal over here. Entry, same, going ahead and filling out all the forms that I showed over there. And you know how I'm very a big proponent on doing the whole trust but verify. So clicked on that, and now let's look at this entry over here, right? Everything is the same except for this person over here. It is called control is true, which means I am validating just by that one little extra column is that did Daniel or the user used the app. If it has used the app, then set the control value as true. Now that control value or the control place is actually a control column that I've put in SharePoint list. Let me show you that. I came over here. By default, in the default view, I don't have it over here, right? And there's no data to begin with, so there's no way the end user can even figure out what the control value is. But if I just go to the list settings, in the list settings, you'll actually see that I've got that control column, and I'm calling it as a single line of text, right? Just nothing fancy, it's just the control over there. Now what happens is, since I have set this data, submitted the data to the SharePoint list through the app, that control value becomes true, all right? That's the way I can do it. If it goes through the SharePoint list, that control value is going to be blank. So let's see how Flow looks at all this data and does its magic in the back end. So now I'm going to focus my attention on the Flow side. So this is the flow that I call it. I just call it as Secure SharePoint Apps. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm kicking off the app when a new item is created in the hotel reservation list, all right? So in the hotel reservation list, the trigger is when the new item is added over there. Then I'm doing something funky. I'm validating that was the control value set to true. Remember that true is coming only from the Power Apps. It will not come when it's used with the quick edit functionality in the SharePoint list. So if it is set to true, we know for sure that this is coming from Power Apps, all right? Which means if it's coming from Power Apps, then I'm going to take that entry, I'm going to store it in my secure SharePoint list over there, and after it's stored in my secure SharePoint list, I'm going to delete it from the primary list because I'm already storing it over here, all right? But if it is not true, which means we know for sure that Gabriel actually did use the quick edit functionality, I'm going to send that email. And that email was the one that I just showed you too. Gabriel got that email. He says, hey, your SharePoint has been deleted. You need to go to this functionality and I need to change that over there. And then it also goes ahead and deletes it. So you see how the magic of Flow in the back end was the brains behind the whole option, right? Because in Power Apps, thanks to Power Apps, I was able to validate that yes, this is a true entry using Power Apps. And then all based on that little tidbit that I'm sending it to Flow, it is able to do all its magic over here. All right, so that's basically how I can go ahead and now validate and make sure that the user is using the forms over there, the Power Apps, and not using the SharePoint list, even though he was able to find the SharePoint list. We've taken all the levels of security over there. Now, I know there's some of you who are pretty sharp, all right? I know who those people are. In the back of your mind, it is just bugging you. It's telling you that, Daniel, I get it. This is all cool. But you did save the data into the secondary list, which is the SharePoint list over there. And when the user, which was Gabriel, when Gabriel came in, he is able to see all that list which is stored in the SharePoint secure list, the secondary list over there. And just to validate that, I'll come in over here on the new form. When I click on this, the data is coming from the SP list. So Daniel, that person actually does have access to that list over there. So how are you validating that? This is where you really use the magic of SharePoint's option of breaking the inheritance of that list and only allowing the maker of the apps to send the data over. So let me show you what that means, all right? So in the original list, which was hotel reservation, everybody needs access to it. So when I come over here to the list, I go to permissions of the list, and I need you guys to focus on this because this is a big deal. This is how it's working. By default, everybody, all the members of the site have access to this, which means Daniel has access to it, and other people, including Gabriel, has access to this as well. That's how he was able to save that data. But they have full team site member access, which means they can do adding, editing, controlling, contribute level access is what they have over here. Let's switch over to the second list over there, all right? The secure SP list. I'm going to come in over here, and I'm going to now go to the list settings. In the list settings, when I go to permissions, for the sake of this simplicity, I've actually just put in individual users. You could add some groups to that, or you could use existing Office 365 groups, whatever works. But you got to go ahead and break the inheritance. Over here, as you can see, I have gone ahead and broken the inheritance. And over here, the people are basically allowing two different, various bunch of permissions. And you can see Daniel Christian, he's got full edit level access over here. Elijah and Gabriel have only read level access. So that's basically how it's working, is that I have got to give them access, read level access over here. And the reason I'm doing the read level access is so that they can go ahead and when they come in, they can see their data over there. Now, again, you might ask, is that Daniel, I don't need to see them, give them access to the list. I could just use a collection. When the app opens up, just take the data from that SharePoint list and drop it into the collection. Think about it. You will still need, any user still needs that read access to that SharePoint list, and that's how they're able to take it and drop it into a collection. So taking and dropping it into a collection really doesn't solve it. Now, what you could do though is really go crazy with this and factor in flow. Where flow, when the app opens up, the Power App sees who the user is, sends that to Flow. Flow goes in and gets filtered data, stores it somewhere temporarily. You could go really crazy with this, but I'm keeping this very simple and to give you ideas. And now you can go ahead and tinker around with this and make it what works for you. But I just want to point you out is that that read level access to that secondary list is important for the sake of this functionality, so that when Gabriel comes in and looks at it, he is still able to see only his entries in that SharePoint list over there. Now, I understand that when the search has crawled in SharePoint, Gabriel could go ahead and actually see that list over there. I completely get it. That's where you can put in some of your mad SharePoint skills and actually filter out some of those the views on that SharePoint list over there, the secondary one, so that when a user comes in, they can only see their stuff over there. You can play around with the SharePoint list views and again, prioritize it to only what that is. But as a whole, I've kind of walked you through the process of how we can secure now the SharePoint list, which is the data source. Thanks to Power Apps, I can validate that the data is actually coming in from Power Apps and it didn't come in from the SharePoint list. If the user was smart enough to find the SharePoint list, then we've also got some workarounds over there. First is in that customized form, we've made it so that no entry can go through that form. There's actually a link in the form to go use the app. If the user was smart enough to use that edit functionality to put some quick items over there, again, Flow catches it, because remember, through that quick edit functionality, it doesn't have that magic variable which is true, which only goes through Power Apps. So Flow catches that. Flow says that this was come through a Power Apps through a list. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that and tell the user, nope, you got to go use that apps over there. So I've kind of played around with this and I've kind of come up with this foolproof way that you will have to force the users to go use the app. And if they're smart enough, there is still some workarounds over here. So hopefully this was helpful to you. At least start with this idea of how to go ahead and put some security, and then go ahead and enhance your own functionalities over there. You figured out something great, perfect. Go ahead and add that to the comment sections over there. And what I'll do is I'll also go ahead and submit this, upload this to my OneDrive, and I'll put that link down here. That way you can have access to that app as well. But as always, keep power apping.